All right, so I'm sure by now you've heard the big news, the shocking news. The Mavericks deciding to trade Luka Doncic to the Lakers for essentially Anthony Davis and a first-round pick. I've been sitting here for hours just shocked at this news. Can't believe it. So now the shock is kind of worn off a little bit. What I want to try to answer with you here is why? Why on earth would the Mavericks make this move and make this move now to move off of Luka Doncic for Anthony Davis and a first-round pick? And the conclusion I have here is this. There has to be something non-basketball related that happened where the Mavericks said, we can't have this guy on the roster for the next hour. We got to move off of him immediately. There has to be something so bad that forced this trade to happen. Because when you look at it from a basketball perspective, there's nothing you could say from the Mavericks perspective that justifies this trade. And when you look at it, right, Luka Doncic, when you take into account age and accomplishments, Luka is the most valuable trade asset right now in the NBA. The guy's 25 years old. He just carried the Mavericks to the finals last year. This is a guy, when you look at through the age 24 season, nobody in the league has more all NBA nods than Luka's 5. And the guy's been dynamite in the postseason. The guy's average in his career 30.9 points per game in the postseason. The only player in league history with a higher points per game average in the playoffs, maybe a guy you heard of, Michael Jordan. So when you take all that into account, right, when you think about the league, there is no player at the age of Luka with what he's already accomplished that I would say is more valuable on the trade block than Luka. He's the most valuable trade asset in all of the NBA. And I'm not even like, if you are the Mavericks and you're telling me, look, we want to trade Luka, I don't think the idea in a vacuum is the worst idea. But there are only 4 players back. If you say, okay, we got to trade Luka, we want to move off of him. There are only 4 players I think you could get back in a trade and feel like you got as close to equal value as you could get in a trade. It's Jokic, it's Giannis, it's Ant Edwards, and it's Wemby. Those are the only 4 players for me, where if you want to trade Luka, that you could get back and then thus justify trading a player of his caliber with what he's already accomplished at his age. And so when you look at the Mavs trading Luka and getting back Anthony Davis as the headline piece, there's no justifying this trade as being a good idea, which why is I keep going back to there's got to be something else they're not telling us. Because all the Mavericks did in making this trade is they got older and more injury prone. You know, AD's 6 years older than Luka. You had a guy who was entering, who's been great already, who's really entering at 25, soon to be 26, the prime of his career, and you shipped him off to get a guy in AD who's exiting out of the prime of his career. He's going to be 32 later this month. And you want to talk about, because right, ever since now this trade's gone down, and we've seen stuff coming out of Dallas. Nico Harrison has spoken on the record to ESPN. And the reasoning you hear out of Dallas for moving Luka is because, quote unquote, of conditioning concerns, that his weight is ballooning up to almost 270, right? It's a lot about his conditioning and how that impacts him on the court. Obviously, right now he's missing time because of a strained calf. You could kind of trace back to training camp and maybe not being in shape. But with all that said, right, if you look at the last 4 full seasons, Luka's only missed on average about 15 games per year. So even with all those concerns about his conditioning and how that impacts his health, that's pretty much healthy. I mean, he's there 3 of every 4 nights. You then traded him away to bring in a guy in AD who's even worse availability-wise than Luka. You know, this is a guy who, on average, in that same 4-year span, we just told you Luka missed on 15 games a year. AD's missed 27 games per year. The guy's called a Humpty fucking Dumpty. Street clothes, because he's never around. He's never healthy. And you are really going to trade a guy in his prime for a guy who's even more injury prone? You can't make it make sense. You can't. And even though you could look at last year and say, oh, well, Ryan, AD played 76 games. He was so healthy. He was great. Healthiest year of his career. Missing only 6 games. But let me ask you this. Again, a guy who's turning 32 in a few weeks. Do you really think that last season is going to be the anomaly? or the rule for AD going forward? Do you really expect him every night to be out there in Dallas uniform? Because I don't. Because in his long career, AD has given you zero evidence to believe this guy will be out there and available 3 of every 4 nights, the way Luka was. And so with that being the case, like, you're not getting healthier. You're getting a guy that is far more injury prone and available far less than your superstar. And oh, by the way, this is to me the most frustrating thing when it comes to Anthony Davis. This is a guy when he's healthy and locked in. There are very few players in the league that are more forceful and can take over games better than AD can. The problem is, we just talked about the health, right? That's one of the reasons why you don't see it that often. The other thing is, this guy doesn't have the mindset to be one of the best players in the league. He has the skill set, the physical capability. Like, he has everything from a physical and talent perspective you need to be a top 3 player in the league every single year. His biggest thing is he doesn't have the mental capacity. He doesn't have the mental part you need to be one of the best players in the league. Like, we saw him, right? That dominant AD. We saw him in the bubble win the Lakers a title. He was the number 1 guy. Really carried the Lakers. He was a force. He was unstoppable. But since then, like, when do you see that AD, that best player in the league, arguably player that AD is capable of having? You see it, one every 3 games, 1 every 4 games. I mean, hell, you have LeBron kicking him in the ass every single game, every single year, and it still doesn't work. You know, when you watch a playoff series, let's say, and it goes 6 or 7 games, how often do you come away in a series saying, wow, AD was the best player in that game, in that series? Like, in a 6-game series, you maybe get it once or twice where AD is the best player in that game. It should be every night. But even in the postseason, he doesn't have that mental edge to be locked in, focused, and reach his potential on a nightly basis. So if LeBron wasn't able to consistently get the most out of Anthony Davis, I ask you then, who in Dallas is going to make sure AD is locked in every single night to be the best player he possibly could be? Jason Kidd? Jared Dudley? Kyrie Irving? Any one of those guys going to make sure that AD is motivated, locked in, reaching his potential? So when you look at this from a basketball perspective, there is zero way you can justify making this move. And that's why, like, I don't think anyone in the Mavericks is that stupid. I don't think you can go to the level of being one of the 30 GMs in the NBA and be that stupid to think we're going to trade Luka Doncic for Anthony Davis and we're going to think we got better. There has to be something else. I'm going to give right now, and again, we are recording this about hours after the trade came out. Right now, less than 12 hours removed from this news breaking, I'm going to sit right now and still give the Mavs the benefit of the doubt that they're not this stupid to make this move, because there's no way you can look at this move and say, we got better. The odds will tell you the opposite happened. The Lakers' odds went way up to win a title. The Mavs' odds went way down. You can't make, on paper, you can't make this trade make sense. You really can't. For Mavs fans, I'm sorry. If this truly is your organization thinking you made the right move, you're so lost. Because you were a defensive player away from winning a title. I would agree with that. But you're not a defensive player away after trading Luka Doncic for that chance to win a title. So bad. Oh, and the last thing I'll say here is this. Actually, 2 things I want to mention really fast. Number 1, with everything you're hearing about conditioning, right, and the Mavericks trying to reason for trading Luka away. They're concerned about conditioning. Don't want to give him the supermax if he's not in shape. All you're doing, by the way, is throwing fuel on the fire of a guy in Luka who's one of the most emotional players in the league. So he's sitting there. He just got traded away in a move he did not see coming. By the way, he did not ask for this trade. He got shipped involuntarily to LA to now play with his idol LeBron. And now you're kind of kicking him out the door. Yeah, he was fat. His weight was ballooning up. He's not conditioned. We don't trust him. All you're doing is dropping kerosene on the flame. You're giving Luka an oil tanker's worth of fuel to throw on the fire for when he does come back later this month. I expect Luka to be locked in, focused, and playing with a chip on his shoulder. You think that trade's going to age well, Mavs fans? Mavericks, it's not even the fan. Mavs front office, you really think that the Lakers are going to get the worst version of Luka? With your words, you are making sure and essentially guaranteeing the Lakers are getting the best version of Luka. That's number one. Number two, the last thing I want to say here is this. Look around the league, right? Like, I think certain players and their talents force you to be more patient than you otherwise would be. We are living in a world right now where the New Orleans Pelicans, with Zion Williamson, who's had a lot of hype, whose potential is supposed to be the highest, we've seen in a while, they are more patient with a guy in Zion who couldn't even right now hold Luka's jockstrap when it comes to accomplishments he's had in the league. But they are somehow more patient holding on and holding out hope that Zion could get his diet down, that he could stay, healthy and be on the court and be a force. We're living in a world where the Pelicans are more patient with Zion Williamson than the Mavericks are with Luka Doncic. Make it make sense. I'll save you the time. You can't. You can't. And that's why, to wrap up here, I just keep coming back to right now, there has to be something else. Because if you're telling me this is a basketball-motivated move, there's no way the Mavericks can truly make this trade and think we won. Bare minimum, we got equal value. You're the most valuable asset in the league, and you decide to call one team. You don't even try to have a bidding war. You don't try to drive up the price. You call one team, hey, this is our offer, take it or leave it. And they say, trade AD and a first-round pick in 2029 for Luka? Yeah, bring it on. Please, where can we sign? If you have a reason why you think the Mavs traded Luka, if you can justify this trade from Dallas's perspective, please let me know. Please write in the YouTube comments. I will be there. We can go back and forth. We can discuss it because right now I got nothing. This makes zero sense from a basketball perspective. This is the biggest L, I think, in a trade we've ever seen in any sport because it's so obvious. It's so bad, not just the return, but the process. Doing this at the last second, calling one team for a guy, it makes no sense. So please, if you have an answer, write in the comment section below. Tweet me, Ryan_Hickey and the number 3. If you can try to justify this from Dallas's perspective, I want to hear from you.